Al Jazeera podcasts.
Hey, YouTube. So normally on The Take, you would see our guest on video, but he was in Damascus and was experiencing some internet issues. So today's episode is going to be audio only. Here it is. Today, it's a new day in Syria.
I stand before you today, 54 days after we were all liberated. Syria was liberated from the shackles of a criminal regime that had oppressed us for decades.
How will the country's new interim president, Ahmed Al-Sharaa, shape his country's political future? And what will it mean for the rest of the region? I'm Natasha Del Toro, and this is The Take.
My name is Osama bin Javaid. I am a correspondent for Al Jazeera English, and I'm speaking to you from Damascus.
Osama, I'm so glad that you're here with us today. And I understand that you have been reporting in this region for a long time. How long has that been?
Well, it's been an on and off affair with Syria for the last 14 years.
So, Osama, you're in Damascus reporting right now on Syria's new government. Former rebel leader Ahmed Al-Sharaa has taken over as president during this transitional period after years of conflict under Bashar al-Assad, which you have reported on. But before we even get into all of that, this is such a historic moment. Maybe you could paint a scene for us of what you're witnessing on the ground.
It has been an emotional roller coaster for a lot of people, including colleagues who've come back for the first time. I came in just hours after Bashar al-Assad had fallen through the Turkish border, and I was accompanied by Syrian journalists who were with me, who for the first time actually saw their own country. I was driving with one, and he looked at me and he said, "It is unbelievable that we are driving at night at high speeds and we're not afraid of airstrikes." I went to Aleppo and we were about to go live. It was about midnight. It was very, very cold. And right behind us, we heard music. And as I turned around, there was a family where the men and the women were all in tears. I went closer to them, and this was the first time that person had come back to Aleppo in over a decade. And he was meeting the sister and brothers, and some of them had been taken away, some of them were missing. And it's those emotional scenes that we witnessed from Idlib to Aleppo to Homs to Latakia to Deir ez-Zor. Wherever you go, there are people who are coming back to see their own country for the first time. I was in a flight this time around, and the moment we landed, we came down, there were people who went to the tarmac and did a bow of shukr, they call it, a bow of thanks, where they just prostrated on the ground saying and kissed the land and said, "We never thought we'll come back to our own country."
Wow, that's incredible that you're getting to witness all of that. Osama, can you tell me a little bit about what this transition looks like on the ground and what are some concrete steps that the government has taken so far?
But I think the biggest change that you see now is that there is a government in power with a unifying figure rather than a dividing figure. Many people here are standing behind their new government. And these people are from the religious right. They're from the religious left. They're people who are actually opposed to Bashar al-Assad, but were opposed to Hayat Tahrir al-Sham as well. There are people in the cities, there are people in the villages who kind of feel that now they have a sense of belonging to their own country. And so far, what we've heard from this transitional government is saying the right things on the right moments, whether it is talking to the people on the ground, whether it is appointing people to ministries who kind of know what they're doing, and as well as talking to the international community. So it's, as one Syrian told me, this is the honeymoon phase of this government. It's actually going to start appearing to us when the actual decisions are going to start happening. And that's when we will find out what this government is really made of.
And I know that this new president, Ahmed Al-Sharaa, has also vowed to pursue criminals who shed Syrian blood and committed massacres and crimes. This is another sort of step that this government has taken. Are there other concrete steps that you've seen that have given you some hope?
Well, I think we have to be careful with hope because there's plenty of it around. And that as journalists, we've got to go beyond it to find out what is really happening in the country. But the hope that I'm seeing is actually amongst the Syrian people. In terms of concrete steps that this government has taken, so there are 2 or 3 very important things that they've done. One is told all the armed factions to disband and come under a united chain of command. The second one, they have dissolved everything that belonged to the previous regime, whether it's the constitution, whether it's the parliament, whether it's the presidency, whether it's the way things are done in the ministries. So they're starting from scratch. And the third most important thing is that they're actually listening to people. There was a minister who went out to a hospital and he was stopped by someone, it was a patient who had to wait for a very long time. And Syrians were aghast at when they saw it and they were like, this is unbelievable. This cannot happen. I remember we were in Latakia, a place where the Alawi minority comes from, and we were doing a live. And when people saw us, they gathered around us. And I asked them, is this the first time you're actually seeing somebody doing a live? And they said, no, this is not the first time we're seeing somebody do a live. We're actually seeing for the first time that somebody's speaking to camera and saying whatever they want rather than just the propaganda of the regime. So there is a lot of hope on the ground wherever you go in whatever aspects you see. But that does not mean there are challenges because Syrians have been devastated, not just by sanctions, but a really poor economy and a mismanagement and corruption that was embedded into the way the former regime ran things.
And I want to get into that. You know, we know that in these first weeks, there have been a lot of diplomatic meetings that are taking place in Damascus. You have diplomats that have come from, Arab countries like Qatar and Jordan, as well as others that are coming in from the international community, suggesting that they really want to open up better relations now with Syria. On Sunday, President Al-Sharaa made his first trip abroad since being named the transitional president, and it was to Saudi Arabia. So, Osama, what is a trip to Riyadh to meet with the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman? What does that signal about the direction of Syria's future? And what do we know about the agenda for this meeting?
So before I take you to the direction that they're headed now, let me take you to 6 weeks of the direction that this country was in. All of the trips from Damascus would either be to Tehran or to Moscow. Every alignment that this country had was with these 2 allies, and it was isolated from the rest of the world. Turkey, for instance, in the last year or so, had been trying to send signals via Iran, via Russia, to Bashar al-Assad to try and smooth things out, and it did not happen. So finally, in the blitzkrieg that Hayat Tahrir al-Sham did across the country, the international community seems to now have a partner that they can talk to that did not exist just over 6 weeks ago. So what Ahmed Al-Sharaa is doing is that he's shoring up support from friends and allies. You've seen the Turkish foreign minister, the Jordanian foreign minister, the Qatari foreign minister, the Saudi foreign minister, and a lot of other people coming to this country. But the only head of state that has come here so far has been the Qatari emir, who's come to just hours after Ahmed Al-Sharaa was named president to stand with him and to show him, the Syrian people and the rest of the world, that now the community and the friends in the region and beyond are embracing the new direction Syria is taking. And you saw Ahmed Al-Sharaa take his first trip to Saudi Arabia. Now that has internal and external ramifications. Internally, this country has been a proxy playground for so many powers, including Gulf nations, who were funding and arming different groups. What he wants to do is he wants to go to these nations and tell them that now his government is in place and all the money and funds should be channeled through him. As they're starting from scratch, they need all the support they can get from all of the partners and friends they have. And Saudi Arabia, with its deep pockets, is going to be crucial in that. And now, what is extremely important is the geopolitics of all of this, because in this region, Saudi Arabia has positioned itself as the leader of the so-called Sunni bloc, and they're moving away from an alignment with Shia Iran to a Sunni Saudi Arabia, from Russia to the United States and beyond, and especially to Turkey as well. You will see Ahmed Al-Sharaa visit Turkey very soon. And there he is expected to talk about bilateral partnership, including economic and social ties, but also a very crucial issue which is still burning in the north of Syria, where Turkey sees the US-backed Kurdish forces as terrorists, and Ahmed Al-Sharaa has a very difficult balancing act to maintain those ties between two partners who are going to be crucial for the future of Syria, that is United States and Turkey.
And are there signs that Saudi Arabia is pushing to end economic sanctions? Is that gaining traction? Or would you say that there's still resistance from Western governments?
Well, you see, it is a very complicated issue of these sanctions. According to Syrians, it's very simple. The sanctions were placed against Bashar al-Assad, his family, and his government because they were persecuting their own people, and they should be immediately and unconditionally lifted. That's the Syrian perspective. From a Western perspective, they say, well, hang on. This is Ahmed Al-Sharaa. This is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. This is a group which, until the US diplomats were here in Damascus, where I met some of them, Ahmed Al-Sharaa was still wanted on their websites. There was a bounty on his head. So for them, they need to see not just words, but they need to see actions. And an inclusive government, as many Western leaders have said, a government which will give rights and a voice to all of the people who were marginalized in the Bashar al-Assad government. So Ahmed Al-Sharaa needs those funds to be released so that investors can come in and start rebuilding this country. But those sanctions are unlikely to be lifted until we see some of those concrete steps where elections need to be held. The constitution needs to be made. A transitional government needs to be elected, which needs to take charge. So a lot of these steps are going to require time.
And of course, it could take years before there are elections in Syria. So we're talking about years before maybe these sanctions are lifted. More with Osama after the break. Osama, it's not just Syria that's changing. We've also seen some pretty significant changes with Al-Sharaa himself. It seems like we are witnessing kind of a rebrand of his persona. As rebel leader of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, he was known as Abu Muhammad al-Jalani. Now he's back to his birth name. He's also changed the way he dresses. And he's talking about inclusivity, appointing women to government roles, and trying to maintain ties with Syria's Christian and Shiite Alawite populations. This is someone who was previously associated with al-Qaeda. So, Osama, how are we to understand this change?
Well, if there is somebody who is the master of rebranding themselves in Syria, that's Ahmed Al-Sharaa. Ahmed Al-Sharaa started off with Jabhat al-Nusra, and then Al-Qaeda, and ISIL for a brief period of time. And now, as we're hearing from the man himself, he says that he's matured. He was trying to figure out, because there was such a strong opposition against him in terms of the regime, he was trying to find partners wherever he could get them. And now that he founded Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, he's had time to actually govern the province of Idlib, where he has essentially delivered much of what he's talking about, where he had the challenge of delivering basic services to people, which would be better from the US-backed rebels held in the north, from the area of Bashar al-Assad as well. And many people who've come here from the north say that they were better off in Idlib because there was a system, there was a governance, they actually had electronic IDs, and they could go about and do things. So Ahmed Al-Sharaa is going through this transition from Abu Muhammad al-Jalani to Ahmed Al-Sharaa, the statesman. And that is going to require not just acceptability on the part of the people and his partners abroad, but also his own fighters. And what we're hearing from them, and this is something that is coming from Syrian academics, that is coming from foreign diplomats who've met him, that is coming from fighting groups who have met him, including the ones who did not always see eye to eye with him, is that they're liking what they hear from the man. They're expecting that there is going to be some sort of delivery on the promises that he's making. But again, it's early days, and you have to realize the challenges, if you just stack them up, seem insurmountable because there's just so many of them. This country needs money to pay salaries. This country does not have the medical infrastructure that is required to cater for people's needs. I met the IT minister, and in the IT ministry, when I spoke to him about data centers, artificial intelligence, and data security, he looked at me and said, in my ministry, there are people who are still doing things in ledgers and registers. We don't have computers. We need to take a step back and realize the challenges that multiple aspects of this country face.
And now we know that there have been some protests on the ground saying that he's not doing enough yet for inclusivity and to ensure secular rule. What have you been hearing or seeing?
Well, look, this is a very diverse country. Syria is comprised of Sunnis and Shias and Alawis and Arabs and Kurds and Druze. So everybody has had a say in how this country should be run. And these freedoms are new to a lot of people. Because if you, as one bureaucrat told me, if you would go and like a post on social media, the mukhabarat will come and pick you up. The intelligence will come and pick you up, just based on that. So now these are newfound freedoms where people who are the mosaic of Syria is known for its mosaics, and these people and these communities form that mosaic. And now they have a chance to say what they want. We're hearing that there is going to be a national dialogue where up to 1,000 people could be in attendance. And we've been assured by the people in power that they are going to be from all parts of Syria, from all denominations of representation of Syria. So they are going to have a say in what this country's constitution will look like. What should it look like? What will be the role of the women of this country? What will be the role of Christians and Druze and Alawis in this country? How will the Sunnis rule this country? Is it going to be a secular constitution, or is it going to be based on a strict Islamic rule? These are all questions that Syrians say that allow us time so that we can sort it out amongst ourselves. And because it has been such a playground for proxy powers and influence from all over the world, that time and that freedom for people to choose what they want and allow them the space to actually do it in the time duration that they want is going to be crucial.
And Osama, let's come back to the Syrian people who are really at the heart of all of this. How are they feeling about this transition?
I think a majority of Syrian people, at least the ones that I've met, and I've been across Syria. As I mentioned, I went to Idlib, then I went to Afrin, then I went to Manbij, then I went to Aleppo, then I went to Homs, I came to Damascus, then I went to Latakia and Tartus, and then I went to Daraa. Everywhere I have been to, wherever I have met people, they are optimistic, they are hopeful. A man on the street of Daraa, I asked him, "How do you feel?" And he looked at me, he took a deep breath, and he said, "Tatanafas, we can breathe." And that is what many Syrians are feeling. I went to the Hamdaniya street here, Hamdaniya rather, where there is a very old market, an old souk, which is known about Damascus. And there people, they don't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot of prospects. Many young people don't have jobs, but you sit with them and sip tea with them, and they will tell you that they have hope. They now feel that their country has the potential to go in a direction where they will be active members of society. I met with people who are from the agricultural sector who say that they're yearning to go back to their fields. I met people who are demining those fields and say that there was an incident where an unexploded munition went off, and the very next day, the farmers went back and they were trying to plow through their fields. So there's a lot of hope, but as that incident shows you how fragile this peace is, how fragile this constellation coming together is, and how easy it would be to break apart.
Wow, what an exciting time for you to be on the ground there and to get to witness everything that's going on and report on that. So we'll keep following your reporting in the weeks and months to follow. Osama, thank you so much for coming and talking with us on The Take.
Thank you very much for having me.
And that's The Take. If you want to catch more episodes like this one, make sure that you're following our YouTube playlist. That's where you're going to find all of our recent content, updated regularly so you'll never miss an episode. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button so that you can stay in the loop with all things Al Jazeera English. See you tomorrow.